How's it going, everyone? And welcome to Animal Talk Podcast with me, your host, Ryan Ferguson. I'm back. It's been a while. I know it's been almost over a month. And yeah, back at it. I thought I would take a little bit of a break. Thought it was only going to be a break for a week or two. Turned out to be a little bit longer than I expected, but it was pretty much me getting everything ready at work for the new normal. Also had a few babies on the go and hand rearing, so my time was taken up by all of that. But sort of back to normal-ish now, and I'm quite excited to be back and recording my podcasts. And I'd ended on the 9th episode and decided, well, you know what, let's make the 10th episode really exciting and interesting. Well, I'm really excited to be able to introduce you to somebody that I am going to be interviewing on this podcast. And this person is my boss. Yeah, so he is the current manager of Crockworld Conservation Centre, where I work. I am so excited to be able to chat to him and give you guys a little bit of an in-depth look into how he got to where he is and where he is today. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Martin Rodrigues. How's it, Martin? How's it going?
How's it, Ryan? Very well, thank you. And how are you?
Good, thanks. So nice to have you on the show. It's been coming for a long time and we're finally doing this, so I'm really excited about that.
Likewise, hey. Thank you for having me on your show as well.
No worries. Martin, question I ask absolutely everybody on my podcasts, and the one that everybody goes every single time, and that is, what is your favorite animal?
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. There's so many animals that obviously love, but I would have to go with a jaguar, hey.
Nice, a jaguar. Why would you say jaguar?
I love South American animals. South America, the Amazon, has always been an area or a region in the world that has fascinated me throughout my life. And just with regards to your big cats and how smart they are and how they go about their sort of daily routine, something that's always intrigued me. So yeah, I would say a jaguar. They're beautiful animals. And I've had the privilege of working with them as well over my career. So I would definitely say the jaguar.
Oh, that's awesome. Getting to work with your favorite animal, I guess, kind of even makes it even better.
No, that's for sure. My biggest thing is I've always been so interested in so many different animals and so many different groups of animals. So I'm one of those that, even though I'm well known for being in the reptile sort of industry, my heart always lies with all the animals. So from carnivores, primates, birds, reptiles, amphibians, sort of all the big groups of different animals have all fascinated me over my career.
Yeah, I think that's so important to have all of that passion for those different animals, especially in our industry, because it's not always that you need to work with one specific animal. You get that opportunity to work with so many different things and experience so many different animals, which is great. And on that note, about passion, where did your passion for animals come from?
Uh, sure, it's quite a unique scenario in my case. So, with me being Portuguese, my father, as far as I can recall, has always been in the classic cafe industry. Your Portuguese stereotype where you've got a corner cafe or a veggie store. That's been my sort of youth growing up with my father always having his own businesses, and here's this young boy with a passion for wildlife. One thing I can say for a fact is that my parents, both coming from Rhodesia, they've always sort of had this love for the outdoors, love for nature. And from a very early age, I can recall my parents taking us out to very cool places. Going up to Kariba, being with my family, getting a little bird sticker book where whatever bird you see, then you take the sticker and stick it in the place where it
Right.
belongs, to sort of from there going to nature reserves and game reserves, and just being exposed to the natural world, specifically by my mom.
Yeah.
My mom, every school holiday, we would be taken on holidays to game reserves, Pilansberg, the likes. And the biggest thing for me, I think, is just being fascinated by the variety. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm sort of someone that doesn't have a specific favorite group, and is sort of fascinated by all aspects of nature and wildlife. And yeah, that's possibly where it all started. And then my uncle, who had quite a big hand in sort of my love and calling for wildlife and nature and nature conservation, more specifically, got to do with him being up in Zimbabwe. He was the chairman or president of the Zimbabwean Nature Conservation Task Force. And
Okay.
in 2000, I think it was, my uncle had came down to South Africa, and there was a green summit that was hosted in Sandton. And I was actually his PA, and one of my friends, Donald, came along with us, and we launched a green ribbon in Peace Park, I think it was called.
Wow.
And he did so much amazing work. Unfortunately, he's late. He passed away a year or two ago now, but he had such a big, strong presence in Zimbabwe
Hmm.
with the task force, and did such amazing work. He was involved in the Cecil the Lion story. He did a lot of work with rhinos and anti-poaching movements, and very dangerous line of work. But that inspired me to know that, my uncle had this amazing impact in the world of conservation, and that for me, I think, stimulated even further. At that point, I must have been in around standard 8 or so,
Hmm.
standard 7, standard 8, and that really sort of drew my focus in quite nicely to do subjects that would enable me to study further in university, in the lines of conservation,
Right.
zoology, biology, that sort of line.
Right. It's so great because, most of the people I get the opportunity to talk to, there's those deep roots embedded that their passion comes from something that was instilled in them through the family or a family member or a friend or someone very close to them that kind of took them on those adventures and took them around and got them passionate about it. And that once that passion is there, it kind of just goes right through and goes into your work and it makes you who you are, which is really fantastic.
No, I think it's you sort of in your DNA, and you rightfully say that it's part of your upbringing, and in those early years. I mean, I've listened to your podcast and your story, and mine sort of lends itself to that one, where at the age of 6, my first bird was a ground scraper parakeet. That was the first pet I had, and we had lovebirds, and we
Yeah.
had budgies, and then we went into African grey parrots. And a lot of my schooling was paid for through the breeding of parrots, by my parents, and I
Hmm.
would be involved in cleaning the enclosures and feeding the animals, and it just sort of grew from there. And in my teen years, I sort of started my own little um, business, if you like, where I was breeding budgies, and then I would sell them and get enough money to buy some ring necks, and then I
Hmm.
sort of just carried on that way. And yeah, that's sort of where I came from. And as I said, for me, now being the manager of Crockhold Conservation Centre, having worked at the Johannesburg Zoo, and prior to that at the Hartbeespoort Snake Park, for most of my formal career, even though my direct line of work has been in the reptile industry and working with reptiles, has been so varied across all the different animal groups, which is again something that I just love so much, that I've had the privilege of being exposed to so many different animals.
Right. You mentioned about university. What did you study? How did you go about that?
Well, I studied at the Tshwane University of Technology, up in Pretoria, formerly known as Pretoria Technikon. I went into nature conservation, where I studied a national diploma in nature conservation. And that was sort of the most amazing experience of my life. Still to this day, it is so fresh in my memory, like it was just yesterday that I graduated, because it was the most enriching part of my life ever.
Hmm.
Um, when you get thrown in the deep end and you are just engrossed in the day-to-day aspects of what you love, it's just a fantastic experience. I mean, we had to complete 19 subjects over, I think it is 2 years,
Sure.
theoretical subjects. So that ranges from ecology to administration or law to environmental education, or they call it environmental communications, to resource management, animal studies, plant studies, and I'm not sure if I mentioned ecology,
Hmm.
geology, soil science. So it is just so varied. And with your core sort of subjects being animal studies, plant studies, ecology, and resource management, you've got this amazing foundation by the time you complete your studies. And in your third year, which is why I really enjoy the sort of technicon or technological universities in my sort of perspective, over the academic institutions, pure academic institutions, because what makes it very nice about nature conservation in terms of a post-matric qualification is the fact that it brings a practical element into it. So you spend your 2 years doing all your theoretical subjects, and it is quite, a large amount of information that you absorb. And then in your third year, you get to actually put it into practice by working in a reserve. I had the privilege and honor of working on the Oppenheimer's private part of the Ezenvelo Nature Reserve in Bronkhorstspruit, Witbank.
Right.
And I did my prac year there, where we had to do a sort of management plan, which gets based on a 2-hectare plot. It
Hmm.
gets extrapolated into a 200-hectare theoretical game reserve.
Right.
And on that, you do all your surveys. So you would do grass surveys, you would do soil surveys, you would do tree surveys, you would do animal counts. And then you have to bring it home by putting in lodges. Where, on what soils can you build roads? Where can you
Right.
put up your fences? What is your stocking densities of your animals? What animals are you going to put in? And it's just so amazing. And as I said, for me, that whole experience still is very fresh in my mind. And that was sort of like the springboard that got me to have the opportunities to work at places like the Haribjespo Dam Snake and Animal Park, where I started my sort of formal post-qualification career.
Right. And what were you doing there? What exactly did you have to get done at the park?
Well, while I was at my sort of practical year on Talperia Nature Reserve, I had some exposure to quite a few cool studies and sort of activities that we took part in.
Right.
And one of the days I was actually called to one of the lodges where they had found a snake, and it was a puff adder. And
Mhm.
I remember it like it was yesterday, because obviously now you need to use the correct equipment. But back then, I'm faced with a scenario where there's a puff adder by a swimming pool pump, and I'm so excited. I need to move it, and automatically, without even knowing, sort of just something in me knew exactly what to do. So to
Right.
get a bucket, to turn the bucket down on its side, put some
Hmm.
newspaper in it, and just try and nudge the snake into the bucket. And from that day, I remember walking with it. Something just told me, "Oh, this is cool."
Hmm.
And I started looking for positions, because obviously, during your prac year, that is your mandatory thing. And then after that, you start looking for positions. And the
Right.
one at Haribjespo Dam Snake and Animal Park came up, and,
Mm.
and it was actually an assistant sort of supervisor position for the reptile department. And I jumped in it straight away. And I started there in December, I think it was 2007. I
Wow.
was there for two years and 4 or 5 months. After that, I went across to the Johannesburg Zoo. But the Haribjespo Dam Snake and Animal Park sort of shaped me.
Right.
As a facility, specifically from the snake and reptile side. At the time, it was the facility with one of the biggest collections in the country. Um, just the sheer number of animals that you had to work with. We're looking at 40, 50 different species of snakes, from highly venomous taipan to your big anacondas, Cuban boas. It was just such an amazing sort of experience. And Jason Seal was the gentleman, together with Kenneth Stradom, who sort of took me under their wing.
Hmm.
And I was put under the pump. I was given information to learn. It wasn't a case where you walk in and they allow you to start working with highly venomous snakes. For the
Right.
first 6 months, I had to work with every reptile I worked with as if it was a venomous species.
Right.
And I think only after 6 months did I actually get my first opportunity to neck or physically restrain a venomous snake behind the head after practicing hundreds of times on non-venomous snakes, as if they were venomous snakes.
Hmm.
So I got to restrain a Egyptian cobra, not Naja annulifera, which is your snouted cobra here in South Africa, but Naja haja, which is your true Egyptian cobra. And that for me was just amazing, and it sort of just grew from there.
And I suppose that whole spark was ignited and made you feel a lot more in it when you actually got got the direct experience to work with that venomous snake. But even though you had been practicing on the other ones, I guess that feeling of actually doing it and actually doing it with an actual venomous snake, the adrenaline must have been crazy.
It definitely was, and the biggest thing as well, which I found, was the adrenaline was there from day one, because, and that's what I believe, sort of the foundation I got was such an amazing one, because it's done the right way.
Right.
So you equipped with the right sort of foundation. So you're not thrown in the deep end, in the sense that you are now working with highly venomous animals, and you sort of take for granted how dangerous it can potentially be. And also, by having the information and having studied them and knowing the geographical locations, knowing their behavior, knowing the scientific name, the common name, having all that sort of information just lays that foundation. So when you're actually in the scenario, and you're doing it, but by that point it becomes clockwork, and
Right.
it becomes a second nature, in terms of how you react in situations. It's almost like there's an automatic switch that goes off, and you're training, because you've done it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times.
Right.
You sort of know exactly what to do. A classic example is a grab stick, which is basically a piece of equipment that nowadays a lot of snake rescuers or herpetologists use. Back in the day, it was mainly used for feeding,
Mhm.
and also with restraining snakes such as black mambas specifically. I had to pick up a raw egg from the ground with the grab stick and put it up on the table, take it off, put it back on the ground.
Right.
And I was told to do that. I can't even remember how many times.
Countless
And that
times.
was before I was ever allowed to actually use a grab stick on a snake.
Right.
And that for me just again shows a level of care and training and thought into the fact that you're dealing with an animal. Adrenaline kicks in. If you're in a scenario where you get a fright, you may exert too much pressure, you may injure the animal. So that sort of, for me, has always been something that stayed with me. And in my career, that has become my way or mantra of how I've taught others,
Right.
where you go back to basics, you do things the right way, you don't rush into anything,
Sure.
and you just allow it to develop and grow, as you go.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. And then stepping out of hartebeestsport into a large zoo like Joburg Zoo. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, it was amazing. Even at the Hartbeespoort Snake Park, even though when I left, I was the supervisor on the reptile department. I think it was 6 months or so. I moved up from the assistant supervisor to the supervisor.
Hmm.
I had opportunities to train seals, and to do seal shows, to do reptile shows, and that was to big audiences. So really, from that perspective, from sort of the show and visitor interaction point of view, I learned so much. But also being exposed to animals there, such as the jaguar, such as um, spotted hyena, brown bears, orangutan, uh, caracal, serval, lemurs, lions. So it was just so varied, and that's what I've always loved so much, is that even though you're in one specific field, the exposure is just so amazing. And then when I went to Joburg Zoo, very much the same sort of thing. You've got the chimpanzees, there's giraffes. I even at the Joburg Zoo had the honor of working with the polar bear. There was a procedure done.
Right.
And I mean, how many people can say that they had the opportunity to physically touch a polar bear? The
Yeah.
animal was anesthetized during a dental procedure. And obviously we were part of the capture team, and assisting
Right.
on the whole day. So for me, that was something that will stay with me until the day I die, knowing that I've been so privileged to have been in the presence of such a majestic animal.
Yeah, and the only polar bears that were ever on the African continent.
Yeah, exactly. To make it even more exciting and more
Right.
awesome. But
Yeah.
Joburg Zoo was very good. Hey, having Makoko the gorilla,
Hmm.
having been exposed to animals like that, your chimpanzees, and also when I walked to the Johannesburg Zoo as the reptile keeper there, I took on board the portfolio of the amphibian conservation and research project. I became the chairman.
Right.
And in my 2 years that I was there, we really did a lot of amazing work with the amphibian project, where we went on collections to go and collect the Natal, at that stage, the Natal ghost frog tadpoles from up in Graskop, where we
Mhm.
were working on projects with species, common species, with the hope of developing husbandry protocols and breeding them to a F2 or 3 generation,
Right.
and then being able to go and collect the sort of analog species, which would be of conservation importance, such as vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered. So that was also an amazing opportunity and experience as well.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear about those conservation projects and being a part of the projects that make a difference in conservation in zoos is so important. And the first time I ever met you was actually at Joburg Zoo. That was our first introduction to each other. I had been volunteering at the zoo prior to that, and then I had moved on to Monty and had been popping into the zoo now and then, and that's how we met.
Yeah, I still remember it. It was quite cool. Joburg Zoo was really an amazing time of my life. From sort of 2009 to 2011, and again, my experience grew, my exposure grew, and also just being in a big facility, as you mentioned. Johannesburg Zoo, one of the bigger facilities in the country. So that was an amazing experience, having the elephants there as well, being
Right.
exposed to all those sort of different animal groups. And I think the biggest thing with zoological facilities, and with me specifically, I think it's quite a unique situation, because I qualified as a nature conservationist, and then to be slotted into the ex-situ conservation part of things. Not many graduates out of nature conservation end up in zoological facilities, and
Right.
you and I both know, in some instances, many people sort of frown upon zoological facilities, and the role and function of ex situ conservation. And
Right.
having worked on several projects, and working in facilities that do things the right way, I don't think people realize the impact and the importance of the work that we do.
Right.
And in scenarios where species out in the wild are being decimated, and there's so many threats out there to wild populations, having facilities working together, with a sort of combined goal, an objective in mind, is how we can make a major impact and difference. And also just by giving the opportunity to expose people to the natural world, close up. I mean, we see it every day, the look on a young child looking at an animal, up close, and just being completely in awe.
Yep.
And I think that is where, um, it's the starting point of the future generation of conservationists, is that, and what
Absolutely.
the role we can play in the interaction with a public member can make that difference. If we're passionate about what we're doing, and we have the opportunity to educate and to show our passion, automatically the little ones will look at us and be like, wow, this is so cool. Look at this animal, and just be mesmerized. And that's how it starts.
Absolutely. It's setting those goosebump moments and those memorable moments that kind of spark the next generation to step into the positions that we are currently in, for example, to be the next conservationists, to protect the wildlife and preserve what we have on this planet. So it's so important. And going back to Joburg Zoo and the frogs and you being part of that, I just saw a few days ago Joburg Zoo reintroducing Picus reed frogs. I mean, that just goes to show you that zoos are doing a great job.
No, without a doubt. And even once had already started down here at Crockwold Conservation Centre. It must have been 4 years ago now already, if my memory serves me correctly. I actually had the opportunity to go out to the site, and to go and assist with I think one of the first collections of pickers gills to take back to Joburg Zoo. So even though when I left Joburg Zoo, we weren't at the point in the project yet where we had gotten in the pickers gills reed frog,
Hmm.
just to be part of that final sort of little circle, and to see that project come to fruition was an awesome experience for me.
Yeah, it's a great feeling, and knowing that yes, you're working on a different frog at the time, but that whole project has stemmed from different species and moved along, and it's all those pioneering species that kind of help with getting the reintroduction going with all the other different species.
No, for sure, and again, that just goes to show you that facilities do things the right way. You don't jump in and just go and collect critically endangered species from the wild. You do the hard yards, you do the groundbreaking work, as you mentioned, and
Yep.
you have a starting point and an end goal, and you sort of work towards that. And that just goes to show you that the significance of the work you do is actually so important, and to follow those steps through from start to finish is even more so.
Absolutely. And then leaving Joburg Zoo, you stepped into a whole different
Oh,
world of
yeah, geez, where do we even start?
hopefully from the beginning.
Yeah, no, we can. That's
Yeah.
fine. So yeah, I moved down to Crockwold at the time. Um, 2011, I started on the 1st of April. I was a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed 26-year-old with a young family. Moved down from Joburg, leave the family up in Pretoria. I had this amazing opportunity, and I leapt at it and came down, and I started as the manager at 26 years old. At that point in time, I had some sort of leadership experience, having finished my career at the Snake Park as sort of the supervisor,
Right.
being in a keeper role at Johannesburg Zoo, also having some leadership responsibilities, but walking in at 26 and having a whole team of people under you that, you know, you're it.
Yep.
It was a very big sobering moment for me in my career. And yeah, I grew. The person I am today is thanks to the exposure and experience, and all the various leadership roles I had to take on when I came down to Crockwold, has sort of put me in such amazing stead in my life now, and has brought me to the point, where I've been a manager of a wildlife facility for 9 years.
Yeah, crazy. Just to think back and know that you've been, pushing along and working really, really hard to get to where you are now, and some interesting horizons.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. I very recently, it's quite a still a sore topic for me, but I've been blessed with an amazing opportunity to further my career abroad. I very recently got a position as a senior ranger at a facility in Ireland, in Cork, called Fota Wildlife Park. So I'm departing Crockwold Conservation Centre. My last day is on the 27th of November, and we'll be relocating to Ireland, and I'll be starting a new chapter of my life and my family's life and my career, on the 4th of January, when I start at my new facility.
Yeah, that's. I mean, speaking from personal side of things, a bit of a shock, but of
Yeah.
course, very excited and looking forward to hearing all the exciting new things that you get yourself involved with, and all of these steps that we make throughout our career, sort of position us into our path that we are going to be following.
Yeah. Without a
And
doubt, Ryan, and also, for me, what I've learned, in one of my greatest sort of lessons is, being in management, you are sort of a custodian. Being a manager is one thing. Being a leader is another, but even more importantly for me personally is being a mentor.
Yeah.
In my career, I've been mentored, as I mentioned, by people such as Kenneth Stradom and Jason Seal, who laid that foundation for me.
Right.
And for me, I feel mentoring is so important, because all you're doing is you're reinforcing and you're igniting the flame and the fire for them, for the people who work with you, your colleagues, the people who work under you, the senior managers above you. It's just about being in a position where you can inspire others, and you can sort of help others to be the best versions of themselves. And
Right.
also, with the mindset that whatever I do, I want the person who I'm assisting or helping or mentoring or teaching to become better than what I am. And, that has always been my biggest focus at Crockwold Conservation Center, is to be a mentor to others. And a lesson my father taught me, a very wise man, and someone I hold very, very dear to me. He mentioned something to me, and I think we often forget, being in the wildlife industry and being in ex situ conservation, our focus is the animals within our care. Our main goal is to ensure that we provide the best husbandry, we provide the best environment for them, we
Right.
educate people. But what we forget is the catalyst to make that possible is our employees.
Yeah.
And my father taught me. He said to me, "My boy, you are nothing without your employees. You
Right.
will achieve nothing. You will go nowhere. You will be pulling a rope and pulling 20, 30 people behind you."
Right.
And that has always stayed right in the forefront of my mind, in my day-to-day sort of working career. And that for me, I think, is culminated in such a special group of people at Crockwold at the moment. And I'm sure you can attest to that.
Yeah.
Each person is not just an employee. They're not just a number on a pay slip. They are humans, and they've got goals and they've got aspirations. And through us using that, we can inspire a sense of empathy towards animals. We can inspire our colleagues to be the best versions of themselves, and for them to carry out this amazing work in the ex situ conservation field, and for them to really make giant strides in the world of conservation and contributions, inspire others. And that's what is so exciting about being in the industry and field that we are in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely say that I am very grateful for everything that I've learned from you, even in the short time that I've been able to
Yeah.
work with you. Um, uh, it's been an honor, and it's been really amazing to be a part of it and learn from you. And I have definitely learned so much that has now helped me in my career and my way forward. So I really thank you for that and appreciate that.
It's only been a pleasure, Ryan. You and I've come quite as you mentioned, we've sort of known each other for many, many years. And we've been working on trying to get you to work at Crockwell for quite some time, because I've always admired your work ethic and admired your expertise and your knowledge and your skills and experience. And you've also had an amazing career this far. And I know you, as a bird curator, in your current role at Crockwell Conservation Center, you've made a massive impact, especially on the bird side. But just with your all the things you've brought into the facility has really been amazing, and it's just helping Crockwell Conservation Center, setting us up for success going forward. Crockwell will always be an incredibly special place. It will always have a very special place in my heart. I've always been someone that if I do something, I do it with everything I am, or nothing at all. And, it's not just a job, it becomes a part of you. And I can already tell it is a part of you as well. And I know that is going to help grow you, in your future at the facility as well.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks very much. And of course, like you've always said, my at this point, my blood bleeds Crockworld.
Yeah, that's always like an insider joke, I suppose. Um, but at the end of the day, you have to sort of declare your loyalty.
Yeah, you have
And
to.
we always chat about it quite often, actually, as part of the sort of the management team, is that at the end of the day, taking ownership of something is so important, because that is the cornerstone. That's your foundation to work from. If if you take ownership of whatever you're exposed to, you know for a fact that you're going to give it your best, you're going to take accountability, and you'll automatically develop a responsibility to do your best. I think we take for granted, and we've always spoken quite often about this, is that on a day-to-day, we go into work, we've got our lists of things that we want to achieve. We go about our day. Before we know it, the day's finished, and the next day starts. And
Right.
I don't think we often stop enough and reflect on what we have achieved,
Yeah.
and the impact that the work has on people. And that, I think, is a very important thing to always bear in mind as well.
Yeah, I think that's for everybody, working in the industry. It's so important for them to just take a few moments just to think about the work that they are putting in and how it can impact so many lives and so many different people, whether it creates another conservationist, another animal keeper, care personnel, vet, anybody, a trainer. It's the small little things that we do in our career and that can pretty much mold somebody else's life, which is, if you think about it, is really amazing.
It really is, but to take that one step further, I think if we just look at it from this perspective, you know, with us going out and assisting local communities when there's wildlife in distress, or whether there be a snake that is encountered in someone's home,
Right,
or a bird of prey, or an animal that is injured,
right,
I think we forget the impact and the role we can play in those scenarios where you've got people that are necessarily contacting you out of fear,
right,
often when it comes to snakes, or contacting you out of empathy towards an animal which they deem to be injured or, sick.
right.
And, the role we have there can change perceptions immediately.
Exactly.
Just by our passion, our knowledge, our sort of approach towards the situation. You can basically save animals' lives just there. For example, if someone calls you and says they've got a snake at their property, if you don't get here now, they're going to kill it. You arrive there and it's a harmless brown house snake, as an example.
Yeah,
And, you go about sharing your information and explaining that, guys, brown house snakes are excellent at controlling rodent populations. And that's why they're called a house snake, because they are attracted to properties, because normally homes have an abundance of rodents, and you can identify it this way. And yeah, no, they're great to have, and they're not venomous. And oh, would you like to touch it? And automatically, when you arrive at the property, the person is shouting at you from 50 meters away.
right.
And by the time you wipe your eyes out, they're holding it and asking someone to take a photo. And I
Yeah,
think it's in those little moments that we actually make the biggest impact.
sure.
So the next time that person finds, a snake on their property, they're going to send you a message and be like, "Oh, check, I found this. What is it?
Right.
What do we do?" And that is an important thing. And with birds of prey like owls, the work I've seen you do, and that's been amazing too, with the amount of impact you've had with the owl project, and about dispelling misconceptions and cultural beliefs about animals like owls,
Yeah.
and sort of you bringing the plight of the owl to the forefront, has been amazing. And I think that is probably some of the most rewarding work we do,
Yep.
um, just purely because of the fact that can change people's perceptions that have got nothing to do with conservation in that sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's definitely one of those things that talks to your, when you get enthusiastic about something, those community members get to see it, and it can definitely be a mind change for them. Um, and by doing that, like you said, can save so much wildlife, which is really, really great. And um, I mean, that's really what we do our work for, whether it's educating the youth when they come to visit parks and zoos, or even adults, or being out in the community and exposing people to wildlife. It's just all really important, and it molds a great community for, warriors of protecting wildlife.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan, there's something that really drives the message home for me. If I look at Crockwell Conservation Center, I mean, it's a facility that is so well known within the greater sort of mid-south coast of KwaZulu-Natal. And if I look at its history, since being opened on the 27th of March, 1985, the facility has welcomed over 1.5 million visitors.
Right.
And I think if we look at that number alone, it sort of puts into perspective the amount of people's perceptions we've been able to change over the years. And I think we often forget how important facilities like Crockwell Conservation Centre is, and the role that a facility has to play as well in the community is also so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And even though you are sadly leaving us, we will continue
Yeah.
with our push forward for our conservation and
Yes.
community work. And yeah, we really appreciate everything you've done. And I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody else at Crockwold as well, that it has been an honor to work with you, even though for me it was short, like we mentioned, but it's
Yeah.
been absolutely fantastic, and we wish you all the best. I wish you all the best on your future endeavors and very exciting future that you have, and more experiences, and getting to now work with some of those animals you may have lost touch with a little bit, working in a
Yes.
slightly smaller facility where there's no mammals or anything like that. Now getting the opportunity to work with some of those animals that you possibly also might change your mind on your favorite animal.
No, for sure. I mean, for me, Photo Wildlife Park is a facility I'm really, really excited about working at. The amount of work they've done, they've got a very similar history to Crockwell. They've been open since 1983. They opened in June of 1983, and it's a massive facility on the European continent. It's a facility that averages 440 odd thousand visitors a year,
Right.
having over 11 million visitors through their facility, throughout the time it's been opened.
Wow.
And just the animals they've got there, from the greater Indian or one-horned rhino to Rothschild's giraffe to
Amazing.
Asiatic lions, Sumatran tigers, agile gibbons, law gibbon, Siamang gibbon, the list goes on.
Right.
Sloths, Humboldt, penguins, you know, European bison. They've got so many projects on the go there as well. Conservation initiatives. The northern cheetah as well. They've bred over 200 cheetah cubs throughout the time the facility has been opened. So I'm just very excited about getting the opportunity to fly the South African flag, South African / Portuguese flag, I would say, on the European continent, and just taking on the new experience. And I'm very excited about it, as you are well aware.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's also very difficult for me to say goodbye to Crockwold. But I've always maintained that I believe the facility is in fantastic hands, with the support that our company has given, the facility at the exec level, and also just knowing the young conservationists with wonderful morals and with good hearts and with the right sort of grit that you need to succeed in our industry. With yourself, James Woodstock, the reptile curator, Smilo, Nolene, just everyone there. I think the facility is in fantastic hands, and it's actually an honor and privilege for me to, hand over the torch, so to speak, to you guys, knowing that you're going to only make unbelievable success and continue the amazing work the facility is known for.
Thanks, Martin. We really appreciate that. And yeah, all the best for you. And thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it, taking time out of your family
No,
time.
no, absolutely anything for you. No stress whatsoever, Ryan.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll enjoy our last few weeks that you have with us,
Yeah,
and
let's
and
have fun.
yeah, absolutely. And all the best with that. Thank you so much, Martin. And yeah,
Thanks,
thanks
Ryan.
everybody. If there's any questions you have, I'm more than happy to pass them on to Martin. He might be willing to answer them for you. If you have any questions about Animal Talk podcast, or you have any topics that you would like to chat about, please feel free to email us at animal.talk201@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions or look at those different topics. So thanks very much, Martin. Have a fantastic evening. It's been great chatting to you, and look forward to
so much.
Enjoying the next 3 weeks and your future photographs on Facebook, as I'll be following on social media.
Yeah, definitely right. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone listening as well.
Thanks so much. Have a good one. Thanks, everyone.
You too,
and
man.
remember, animals are our passion. Bye-bye.
Still funny, but don't worry, I'll hold it by my ear.
Oh, there we go. It's
cool.
back. It's much better now.
There we go. Cool stuff. Sorry
Cool.
about that, Ryan.
No problem.
Jeez, I've been speaking like in the whole thing, thinking, like trying. Okay, cool.
You're all good.
Okay, where were we?
We were talking about educating the community.